everybody to Reactivated, and as we head to our inevitable fantasy fight coming up in just a second, but first is Bot Bit. On the screen you will see two robots fighting it out to the death, and we of course are looking for the two robots who are featured in the fight and in what series does the fight take place. We will tell you very, very soon. It's crunch time now. We are here at the final of our Fantasy Fight tournament, and it is Carbide versus Typhoon 2. Okay, this is the battle of the old guard and the new wave. Series 7 champion against Series 9 champion. This has been quite very much, in my head, anticipated right from the start. When I drew the names out there, the pencil case, thinking this is going to be a clash of the discs here from different generations. So for me, who is going to win? The advantage from Carbide is that it was invertible. The advantage for Typhoon 2 is that the whole 360 degree of the machine was totally unapproachable. Its defense was fantastic. You could not attack it. There was no area where you could get into Typhoon 2 and just obliterate it. Disc spinning up, of course. The drum spinning up. For me, this is going to go to our final Fantasy Fight champion is Carbide. There it is the winner. Only because it's invertible, faster, more manoeuvrable, I think. Typhoon 2, a lot of time it was out of control, and it did take a lot for the drum to spin up. When it did spin up, it was deadly, but remember, it nearly went out in the first round of Series 7. But when it does spin up, great. I just don't think Typhoon 2 would be able to get through the armour of Carbide. Carbide with the manoeuvrability, because if Typhoon even flipped Carbide, it would land on its feet. It's invertible. We could debate this. You can see on the screen that the final, that's just to confirm the result. We can debate this all day long. Is it an anticlimax, really, this Fantasy Fight tournament? I want to know what you think. Do you think Carbide is the overall champion of this Fantasy Fight tournament? Please do let me know in the comments below. It will be very, very close. It might have even gone to a judge's decision. But I think that one killer blow, Carbide hitting Typhoon, flipping it over, the gyroscopic speed would send it all over the place. And yeah, that for me, Carbide the winner. Let me know your thoughts as we move on to a rewind. We're going to rewind now to a robot, for me, has to be up there with Behemoth, one of the unluckiest robots to ever enter the arena. And this has been requested quite a while ago now by Donut King Neela. And the robot that we are going to rewind back on in time is Iron Ore / Axel. At the helm of this family of robots, it was the Grimm family. They first debuted in Series 4 as Iron Ore, and it had the axe. They were against Mortis and Massacre in the first round. The axe was a bit underwhelming, okay, and it got into a bit of trouble, to be honest. I think they were quite lucky to get through the first round, but they did. Sadly, though, their run ended in the second round of Series 4 when they were up against a flipper. Now, the flipper of Steg 2, for me, Steg 2 was the best incarnation of Steg, and the Iron Ore team were unlucky to get flipped over by Steg and lose. Steg 2, of course, gave it a little bit of a flipper Matilda, which was always pleasant to see. But this was the start, really, of Iron Ore's unlucky streak, because for me, pretty much every series they were in, they were up against a flipper and ended up either being flipped or being flipped out of the arena in quite dramatic style, which we're about to discuss. Because after Series 4, they made one or two appearances in Extreme 1 as the new blood, the new robot, because this was now, for Series 5, the incarnation that was Axe Ore. This was sort of Iron Ore 1.5. Totally changed. They kept with the axe, but it was all red, and this was the only entry with Axel was for Series 5, and of course in the first round was up against Granny's Revenge, and I've mentioned this many times. Well, Granny's Revenge fight was just brilliant. Axel didn't really know what to do. How do you destroy an old woman on a wheelchair with great difficulty? Just get Redbot to sit on her face. Axel very comfortably won the first fight, and for me, this next fight against Wheelie Big Cheese in round 2 again, just they couldn't get past the second round. They were tossed out of the arena in, at the time, the biggest flip, and to be honest, it probably still is the biggest flip, correct me if I'm wrong, from halfway across the arena. Wheelie Big Cheese, I mean, this flip was just devastating. It was so good to watch. I laughed at this fight, and poor Axel, again suffering to the hands of a flipper and an experienced flipper. So Axel, that was it. We never saw Axel again. They returned with Iron Ore 2 for Series 6. And this is the Iron Ore, for me, that I always think of when I think of the robot. This is the version of Iron Ore that sticks in mind for me. But once again, in Series 6, they were up against a flipper, and guess what? It was Chaos 2. And again, being tossed out of the arena, it was so quick. Iron Ore, they had such potential because it was a good machine, Iron Ore 2. Very, very brief appearance in Series 6, returning for Extreme Series 2 in the Challenge Belt Tournament. But once more, up against Dan Tokyo in the second round, they were tossed out the arena again. I mean, talk about bad luck. Iron Ore 2 this was at the time. You couldn't get any worse luck than this machine, this poor machine, who had the potential. So, of course, came back for Series 7 as Iron Ore 2.1. They were going to return with a brand new robot, but they just didn't quite have enough time, hence 2.1. And they were up against, in the first round, Disconstructors, Xenomorph and Hammerhead 2. And finally, a bit of luck, because they weren't against a flipper for this. They comfortably went through with some decent hits with the axe and then the flip. And then we thought, oh my goodness me, history is going to repeat itself once again. In every single series, they've been up against a flipper. And this was bigger brother. We thought it was going to happen. Iron Ore would be flipped out the arena. Roles reversed for this one, because in the end, a lucky flipping, well, I say lucky, timed I think, with a little help from Shunt, Iron Ore got the flipping and flipped bigger brother out the arena. Their most famous victory throughout the entire history and run of Robot Wars. Didn't escape the heats. It lost to Typhoon 2, the eventual champion of Series 7. And for the first time, they weren't against a flipper. It was a disc that destroyed them, and boy, did it destroy them. And sadly, that was it. We didn't see Iron Ore return after its fight against Typhoon. Now, since Series 7, they were going to return with Iron Ore 3, but we never did get to see that because they never returned for an 8th series at the time. Between Series 7 and 8, they actually competed with Iron Ores 3 through to 5 in various events across the country. And it was only when Robot Wars was rebooted that we saw maybe the potential for them to return. It took them a bit. We did see them eventually in Series 10 under Iron Ore 6 and ended in 3rd place in the heats, qualifying for the 10 Robot Rumble. But of course, didn't really get out of its heats. It failed. The flipper was just non-existent. We didn't get to see it flip once. Against Taran, Concussion and Androme 4000, we just didn't see the flip. Somehow managed to end up in 3rd place and go through to the Robot Rumble. And that was it. Iron Ore 6 crashed out. The team still compete. Iron Ore 8, I do believe, the incarnation is at the moment. A fantastic team. They've been throughout the history of Robot Wars, the Grimm family. Will be forever known as the robot, one of the most unluckiest robots to be up against a flipper and being flipped out the arena in dramatic style. Now, cast your mind back to Extreme 2. One of the house robots had the addition of a weapon, and that, of course, was Growler. Not only did he have a bite, he had a blowtorch at the back of him. And you only saw it in a couple of fights. Now, it was fitted between Series 6 and 7 with this torch, this blowtorch, with the idea of actually keeping it. But for whatever reason, they decided against the weapon towards the end of the series. So when Jonathan Pierce came to commentate on his parts, he never mentions the flamethrower. He doesn't mention, because Growler does come in for the kill in a couple of parts onto dead robots, with his backside showing, with the blowtorch in action. But Jonathan Pierce never commentates and never comments on the flamethrower, the blowtorch. It would have been a nice continuation if they kept it on for Series 7. Why they didn't keep the blowtorch, I don't know. please comment in the comment section below if you know. I don't know that, but 1 or 2 fights you saw in Extreme 2 of an additional weapon, Growler's Blowtorch. Well, our merchandise memory look back and reviews of the original 6 toys is almost at a close. For this one, we've reviewed all the house robots, so there's no surprises here as the camera zooms into which robot we are looking at today. And Hypno Disc is the first competitor robot that you could get, of course, released in the same batch as the original house robots. They've been very clever as well with them. So I'm going to, the features here. So the features, obviously you've got the disc, looks great, goes great. It's the same mechanism as when you pull it back. So the idea was you pulled it back and the disc went along as it's shot off across your carpet. And what they've done is to make use of both of its shells, the features of, they've combined, okay, so the self-righting mechanism really should have been on the second shell, because that was its Series 4 look. But nobody in their right mind would have put just the normal boring box shell with nothing on. So they cleverly put the Streamec on the Series 3 version of Hypno Disc, and then just the spikes on the Series 4 version of Hypno Disc. Other than that, the design looks great. For me, features and the attention to detail on the wheels all look really good. Maybe just a little bit on the smaller side, so similar to Sergeant Bash's side. So I'm going to give Hypno Disc an 8 for features. Its realism to the actual show, very realistic. They've not really missed anything visually. So for me, I'm going to give Hypno Disc a 9. So there's my overall rating of Hypno Disc. And of course, what Hypno Disc did come with wasn't anything in the pinball that we know of from Series 3 and 4. Hypno Disc came with the Breeze blocks. Here we go, the Breeze blocks from the Series 2 Gauntlet. So this was opening up our eyes. Can we make a Gauntlet arena from Series 2? And of course, we did do that at some point in our run. So there we go. That's my Hypno Disc recap. The first one to be made, competitor-wise, and a pretty decent job of it they did as well. So, we've just reviewed Hypno Disc. Before we move on to your questions, speaking of Hypno Disc, yes, in our bot bit this time, Hypno Disc is involved. They were up against Bigger Brother, Eliminator final of Series 5, when Hypno Disc should have won. So, Hypno Disc Bigger versus Bigger Brother, well done if you got those. Now, we're just going over to your questions as we have time for a couple. First, we have the Glanville 32. What was the reason for ending your Robot Wars series? The first run that we did, Series 1 to 5, we ended that in 2007, at a time where we were leaving college and going off to university, and we just all split, went to university for 3 years, and of course by then Robot Wars was long gone off the telly, so I think by Series 5 we were pushing our luck a bit, but we did return obviously in 2017, 10 years later, and we did 3 more series ending at the end of 2019, and then COVID hit. Next we have Angry Oliver 06. What's my opinion on the Dietor and Tornado fight? Again, another fight from Series 5. One of my favourite fights of Series 5, I have to say. It was a shock. It was a shock. Dietor performed its best in that series, in Series 5. Of course, losing to Spawn again. So for me, Angry Oliver, one of my favourite fights of Series 5. Well, thank you very much for your questions. Please do keep them coming in. I will try to answer as much as possible on a future edition of Reactivated. Please like, share, subscribe, download, and enjoy. And thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you very soon on Reactivated.